this whole obsession with genitals is ridiculous because please, because you can fall in love with someone who's got a facial injury, a permanent facial scar, who's missing a finger, who's missing a leg. All a genital is the most sacred part of somebody that you love.
All right, everybody, what country are we in?
We're in the United Kingdom.
Fuck!
That is perfect comedic timing.
All right, everybody, what country are we in?
We're in England.
We are in England.
And what's your name, sir?
My name is Laurence Fox.
And what's your name, sir?
My name is Francis Foster.
Excellent. And we're going to play Spectrum Street Epistemology, and we have some claims. So let's start off with the first one. The consideration of race should be used to hire airline pilots. Strongly agree over there, strongly disagree, move. Okay, you're both on strongly disagree. Okay, so I'm going to do something different. I'm going to flip a coin. Mm-hmm. You want heads or tails?
Tails never fails.
Is that tails? Yeah, okay.
Tails.
I don't know. This is the island money. Tails. So you.
Island money.
So yeah, I came here with beads and coconuts to give you people. Okay, so you're gonna have a choice.
Yeah.
You can either stay on that line.
Yeah.
Or move to that line, or make him stay on that line and move to that line. And one of you who moves to that line is gonna have to defend the other position.
Who's gonna defend the other position? That's a really interesting one. Okay. I'll go on that one,
okay.
And I'll play devil's advocate.
Okay.
I want to make it clear to everyone that I am playing devil's advocate, and this isn't my position.
Okay.
I don't want you clipping this, and then finally there'll be people going, "I knew that Jew was woke."
You're being promoted.
Mate, they're not going to want me. Do you think they want me?
Okay, the consideration of race should be used to hire airlines. What is your best argument? Tell him your best argument for why the consideration of race should be used to hire airline pilots.
Because when it comes to public school education, some people receive a far superior public school education to other people. This is, of course, unfair, and it doesn't reflect people's inherent ability. And these people have a natural disadvantage. So actually, what we need to do is redress that disadvantage by putting in diversity quotas to make sure that people get a fair crack of the whip, as it were.
Whilst I take your argument, I would have to say that when it comes to something like an airline pilot or a surgeon or something like that, I would like to have the most talented and professionally certified person to do that task, rather than hiring someone based on something as immutable as skin colour.
Whilst I take on your point, I would also argue as well that when we're talking about merit, it's if somebody goes to the best possible schools and has the best possible education, does that mean that they're going to be the most talented? So, for example, if you look at something like the Premier League, where it doesn't matter what school you went to.
What is that?
The Premier League, forget, you're a heathen. It's soccer. It's soccer. It's a soccer league. And it's the highest soccer league in the world, the best. If you look at something like the Premier League, most of the people who play in the Premier League come from a lower or working class background, because once you get onto that pitch, it doesn't actually matter what level, where you come from, what school you went to, any of that. It is purely the best. And you will see that with the exception of one or two, most of them don't go to private schools or that type of education.
You would also find the Premier League being a useful example that they're in the UK, which is, let's, for the sake of argument, say it's 80% white-skinned country, 20% mixed-race country. So that means 10% of the country are mixed-race males. That the England football team is 70% mixed-race. So therefore, if we were to hire people based on skin colour reasons, we'd need to have a much worse football team. We'd need to find 8 or 9 white guys just because they're not being represented due to equity reasons.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. I'm going to push back on you.
Can I just...
Yes, please.
No one has ever wanted to hire white guys. Over to you.
They did in the good old days.
So you're saying that winning is more important than redressing historical injustices?
I believe that it depends on what one is talking about, but if you're talking about a competitive tournament, certainly something like the Premier League, which Francis mistakenly says is the best football league in the world, the rewards for winning, if you come first compared to coming 20th, are vastly disparate. So, yeah, I think winning is important. I think it's also innate to the human spirit, competitiveness and competition, and it's in evolution as well.
But what if one doesn't value winning as much as they value having diverse people on a team?
Then if someone doesn't value winning as much as having diverse people on a team, well, then absolutely that's fine. It just means that the standard and the quality of what you're going to witness is going to be lower.
Right.
Because you're not basing it on meritocracy. You're not basing it on talent. You'd lose all of the Maradonas of this world, and you'd lose so much talent and so much ability that you'd end up with just something very beige and dull, almost like 2020.
Okay, so let's go back to the consideration of race should be used to hire airline pilots. So would you admit that is going to cause more crashes than if meritocracy was the golden rule? Would you admit that that's going to cause more problems?
Not necessarily, because I think that anybody can be trained to do anything, and I think there are racial disparities in the world, and they should be. We should look to try and level those up in a certain way, but that's by giving people more opportunities, not by creating quotas for them to do so.
But anybody can be trained to pick bananas, but not anybody could be trained to. I mean, I don't know the first thing about flying a plane, but I would assume fly a plane or be a brain surgeon or any kind of surgeon, right?
Yeah, no, there are certain jobs that it doesn't matter what skin color you are, those people will be brilliant at it. Once you do start dividing people down into ethnic groups, you find that, there'll be an awful lot more Southeast Asian brain surgeons than there will be white ones, I imagine.
So what would you respond to someone who is honest, not people who are going to lie about it, but someone who is honest and say, you know what, I would be willing to sacrifice 5 to 10, maybe even 20 times the number of airline fatalities if we have more diverse, that is, pilots with a darker skin color. What would you say to that?
I would say, would you mind your own closest loved one being on that plane?
Okay. Mm-hmm. And I remember you're defending this position that you don't believe. What is your response to that?
My response to that is, as technology grows ever more powerful, safety will increase. Things like AI, technology, that the role of the pilot will become ever more secondary as the role of the pilot becomes ever more automated.
So let's say that happens in 20 years, but in the next 20 years, or 10, let's say that happens in 10, but in the next 10 years, are you willing to tolerate more or maybe even significantly more airline fatalities to promote diversity?
As long as they contain the bodies of my enemies, then yes.
Okay. Appeals to indigenous status is a good reason to defend restricting immigration to the UK. I'll read it one more time. Appeal to indigenous status is a good reason to defend restricting immigration to the UK. Move. Oh. Read boards. What we're going to do now is don't let anybody see what you're going to write. You're going to write down the best reason you have, one single reason, the best reason you have for believing that. Why are you standing on the disagree and why are you standing on the agree? You got it? Okay, so I want you, don't say what your reason is. I want you to guess what his reason is, and all you're going to say is yes or no, is he correct? So what reason, is his best reason for that on the board?
Because in a community which is made up of broadly the same race, it's going to be far more cohesive as a result, because that community creates a monoculture. Monocultures are far more cohesive because they're not multicultural, so because they're not multicultural.
Okay, yes or no, is that your reason?
It's not millions of miles away.
It's close.
It's 50% there.
Okay. Is the reason he gave better than the reason that you have written down?
No.
Okay. I want you to please guess what is his best reason for standing on, Francis' best reason for standing on the disagree.
That throughout history, people have migrated to different countries and cultures, and immigration is generally brings great, cultural enrichment to society.
Is just yes or no, is that correct?
Broadly, but it misses a crucial element of the argument.
Okay, is the reason that he gave, the reason Laurence gave, is that better than the reason you have written here?
No, it's part of it, but it's not the whole.
Okay, show him what you got and explain it to him. Culture is far more important than race. Explain that.
So there are people who come to this country who love this country, who are aligned with its values, who will contribute to this country, and in many ways that cannot be measured. The issue that comes with immigration is the sheer number of it, the sheer size of it, the strain that it puts on our infrastructure, the strain that it puts on our services. And also as well, people need to be coming here wanting to contribute and wanting to enrich and wanting to be British. If they don't, that's where the issues come in.
Okay, so my question to you is, do you understand the reason that he gave? Not agree with it, understand it.
No, not entirely, no.
What is it? What question would you like to ask to help make that more clear?
What is the difference between multiculturalism and multiracialism?
Okay, so multiracialism is that you can have people who are black, mixed race, but they identify as being English or British and see themselves as being part of our culture. Multiculturalism is someone from a completely different culture whose culture may not share the values of our culture, and as a result of that rejects our society and rejects the country, and in some cases openly despises it.
Was that more clear?
Very much so, yeah.
Okay, now, is the reason that he gave, does that justify him standing on the disagree, or would it move him to the strongly disagree or the slightly disagree, or is that just about right, the disagree?
I think it feels right for him, yeah.
Okay, all right. Can you please explain to him what your reason is?
I think that people belong to a place, and it's for the same reasons that you look at people in Ethiopia during droughts and stuff and go, well, why don't you just move somewhere where you're not all suffering from enormous famine, but that's their home, that's where they belong, and that's where they were born. And I think being, as Roger Scruton called it, a somewhere person rather than an anywhere person is probably better for societal cohesion and harmony, as Franz said. I think you're more likely to take pride and try and protect and preserve and enhance your society if you have a strong sense of belonging there.
Not do you agree with him, but do you understand his reasons?
Absolutely, I do, of course.
Okay. Do you think that the reasons he gave people belong to a place justify him standing on the agree, or should he move to a strongly disagree or slightly agree, or is that calibrated correctly?
I think that's calibrated correctly, yeah.
Okay, cool. So what would it take you to move to slightly agree? Like what piece of information, what fact, what reason would you have to hear to move you one line over?
To move one line over, I would have to have confidence that the government, actually, that it was legislated that things like some of the problems we've seen with assimilation in this country, the introduction of blasphemy laws that we don't have, that those would be clamped down on, certainly with various religious groups who will not have certain things done in England, but they're in contravention of existing British laws. So if the government, or an example of the blasphemy problem that they had in Batley Grammar School, the MP should have said, this is wrong, we're not going to do this, we're going to send the police in and we're going to protect it. And then I would move to slightly agree, because I'd feel like the government cared about that, but the sitting MP of that area has never even mentioned this man who's in hiding for his life, having had his life threatened.
Wow. Is the reason that he gave to move to slightly agree, is that reasonable?
That seems to be reasonable to me, yeah.
Do you think it's possible to achieve?
Do I think it's possible to achieve what? To have a government that is that has integrity and is strong and is willing to defend its principles? I'm sorry to be profane here, Peter, but the words "fuck no" spring to mind.
Okay. Okay. Well, then I guess he is calibrated correctly.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what would it take you to move to the one line to the slightly disagree?
So mainly of the experience, but so for example, my mother is an immigrant, and actually she is far more patriotic and far more nationalistic than the vast majority of British people that I have seen. In fact, if you look at the people who are from the normally upper middle class or middle class, university educated, one of the most dispiriting things that I've seen amongst that whole group of people is a distaste or even shame that they have towards their nation. I remember them the number of times they go to me and we talk about culture, and I say, of course, culture is important. They go, well, Francis, what is British culture? I'm like, I don't know. Chaucer, Milton, Shakespeare, our wonderful heritage and music, the dramas that we produce, the artists, the innovations. I mean, that is our culture. But they seem positively ashamed of it. And actually, when you talk to them about it, they seem to be the ones who are even more vocal than other groups in wanting to tear it down and destroy our nation.
So what would it take for you then?
I don't think it would, genuinely. This is something that I have pondered and I've thought about it long and hard. And ultimately, to me, the most important thing is culture, because if you identify with a particular country and you love this country, then you are going to do everything that you can in order to make it a better nation for all concerned.
Genital preference is a good reason to reject dating people who identify as trans. Genital preference is a good reason to reject dating people who identify as trans. Call it.
Heads.
Heads it is. What do you want? You want to move?
So I can either argue the... I might as well go and give myself some hard work.
Okay.
It's... This whole obsession with genitals is ridiculous. Because... No, but please. Because... you can fall in love with someone who's got a facial injury, a permanent facial scar, who's missing a finger, who's missing a leg. All a genital is the most sacred part of somebody that you love. So why does it matter whether it's a penis or a vagina? It doesn't make any difference at all. You love that person. Mm-hmm. So this whole idea, and while sex is apparently a binary according to all of the conservatives, it's very obvious that you get very different broad spectrums of people. And, we're just discovering the biology of that and what's going on chromosomically and what's going on in one's head. And I think that it's how we treat our most vulnerable people that reflects on how healthy we are as a society. And to not date a trans woman just because they have a penis is, to me, just seems to be, it's like tiny. It's a tiny, insignificant matter.
Do you have a response to that?
You are a cracking actor, Laurence.
That was really good.
That was really good. That was really good. Because unfortunately, sex is binary. And to date, and of course, somebody's genitals are going to make a difference to whether or not that you are attracted to them and whether you want to have sex with them. Otherwise, things like homosexuality wouldn't exist.
But wait a second. Let's go back to that point though, because and correct me if I'm wrong. You love the person,
right? But that doesn't. But you love the person. But what do we mean by love? I'm talking about sexual attraction. You can love many different types of people. You can love your aunt. Doesn't mean that you want to have sex with her. We're talking here not about love, but about sexual attraction. We're talking about dating. Dating is just a euphemism for having sex with someone.
Oh, that's interesting. Call the cops. So let me just make sure. No. All right, let me make.
It's an audition.
Let me make sure that I have this correct. So, you want to claim that sexual attraction is based on genitals. But what if the retort to that is, well, it shouldn't be. It should just be based on who the person is.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it should, but that isn't real life.
So you wouldn't sleep. You're heterosexual.
Yes.
You wouldn't sleep with a person with a penis who claims they're a woman.
No.
Okay. Do you think that's rather limiting for him? It certainly reduces his dating pool.
Well, it's just interesting, isn't it, that people like Francis have to hold on to this very important thing, like, it goes off into homosexuality and all of that, which, so you sort of see this, the way that the brain works, which is an obsession with genitals. And he quite rightly, he's expressing there, what we've done in society is we've repressed our sexuality so much that what he's doing is he's immediately going, I'm a straight man and you dating means sex and I'm not gay, so I won't touch that. And what you're doing is you're not allowing yourself to understand that sex is just that much of a relationship. Yeah, if you want to sort of go and have children and all of that sort of thing, you need a man and a woman. But there's no reason why you can't have the same level of intimacy with a trans woman. Probably some more fun with a courtesy reach around.
It could be. It could.
Look, I'm going to be honest with you.
It could be more fun, though.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I take that point. It'd be nice to have someone down there who knows what they're doing, but.
Like home court advantage.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
is is the home court advantage enough for you to move to agree?
Absolutely fucking not.
No. But what about the argument that it could be more fun? I mean, you're kind of used to the same thing, right? If you've never been with a trans woman, you're kind of getting stale in that dating arena.
Because dating is kind of like curry. You experiment a bit with what you like, and you think, I'll try this, and I try this, and then you just set on a lamb sarg, and that's what you like, and that's what you have every time.
Right. So dating is like curry.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a sufficient argument for him to be a reason for him to be on the strongly agree? I
think it's the sort of argument that you would make, if you were just stuck again in this idea that it's just like. It says a lot that I imagine people who will not consider having sex with a trans woman probably do have exactly the same food in this restaurant. They don't like changing restaurants either. They don't like changing sexual positions. They probably don't like lingerie. They probably don't like sex games. Probably just like, I want to ejaculate, I need to get that done, and this is dating. And it's to me, it smacks of
limiting,
real insecurity as well.
Masculine insecurity.
Yeah, a total loss of masculinity, ironically.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to conclude here. Do you have any final points to say? I mean, I don't know, that reach around argument, that wasn't sufficient for you to move?
No, I've played rugby.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, we're going to do a next claim that we're going to pull up. Go back to the neutral, please. Muslim immigration to the UK should be restricted. Muslim immigration to the UK should be restricted. Move. Take your time. Think about it. Laurence has gone to the slightly agree, and you're hovering on the neutral. You're thinking about it. Really? Now I find this to be very interesting. Why do you disagree with that?
Number one, it's because I think immigration levels are currently unsustainable as a whole. But also, I feel that when we look at immigration, we need to start looking at it in a purely pragmatic sense in terms of skills. Who are the best people to come to this country with the skills that they have? The fact that we can just have mass immigration from a whole range of different countries, to me, is profoundly unsatisfactory. We have a labor shortage in this country, and actually what we need to be doing is looking, like I said, pragmatically at industries and going, right, we lack 5,000, electronic engineers. Let's bring in electronic engineers. We need teachers, we need this, and we need that. So I think that's the way we need to approach immigration.
Nothing to do with, that's not a consideration, religion. Is Islam a consideration? Should it be?
The issue that I have is that there are a lot of Muslim people who come to this country, who contribute, who are fantastic, who are wonderful, and they are part of our community. The problem with Islam is there is a small subset within that community who are extremists and have extremist values and ideologies which have no place within our society. The problem then comes is how do you separate the majority from the minority? Because the reality is, if we're being honest, we don't want this minority in our society, in our culture.
Okay. So Muslim immigration, you slightly agree. Talk us through that.
Well, those that come from Muslim countries, the reason why I'm on slightly agree is because I agree with Francis that it's separating out a smaller, I don't think it's as small as Francis might think it is, but I think it is a smaller minority of Muslims, but they're coming from theocracies where there is no separation between church and state. Britain is a secular liberal democracy, so first and foremost you practice any religion or none, and then you have the problem that we discussed earlier with Batley Grammar School, that people are saying, no, we put Allah ahead of the UK legal system, and therefore you have a problem. I think that Islam sees itself as the religion. I don't think it's massively tolerant of other religions. In fact, I think, I'm no Islamic scholar, but there's certainly references to what you do with those that fall out the faith and various things like that. And the polling has been done in the UK. 50% of people in the UK, 50% of Muslim men think that homosexuality should be illegal in the United Kingdom. So I don't think, unless you can culturally assimilate and you can put your love of Allah to one side in the same way as we do in England, whereby you can practice all religions and none, I think you can potentially create quite a large problem, a much larger problem than we currently have.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a question. Yeah. If you think this question is unfair, you can just say it's an unfair question. So many Muslim immigrants, in fact, most Muslim immigrants, not only do they have more children, but they have more children at younger ages.
Yes.
And so if you were to project out, let's say that you projected out to 2050, and it was, let's say 50% of the population were Muslim. Do you think this would be a problem?
Yes, I do think that would be a problem.
Okay, so I'm not facetious when I ask you this question. I'm like totally serious.
Yeah.
At what point do you think the British people should sincerely consider surrendering?
What do you mean by that question?
Well, let's say that Muslims were 90% of the population. Do you think that it would be better for the people here to surrender rather than face whatever consequence of, do you think they should try to negotiate a kind of armistice or a kind of peace to not get slaughtered? I mean, there has to be some number at which you should say we should surrender. The question is, what is the number? Is the number 90% Muslim? Is the number 98% Muslim? Is the number, or if my reasoning is in error, if you think no surrender is necessary, let me know.
So, see, I don't know enough about this topic really, but so in where you have Islamic countries where are more liberal, shall we say, and they have religious minorities living within them, I don't know how to answer that question, if I'm being honest, Peter.
Do you think that there's a percentage of Muslims who come here at which point the inhabitants should just surrender to them?
I think it's already happened, because when you look at the demography's destiny point, the so-called indigenous Brits are breeding at 1.3 or 1.6, and the Muslim families breed at much more. So I think whatever happens, we're going to see an explosion in the Muslim population and a massive falling off of the sort of indigenous, for want of a better word, British population, because we're not replacing ourselves. So when it comes to surrender, we will have to see how strong the law is. And obviously we discussed earlier about the fact that there's a lot of moderate Muslims, and a lot of them are already members of parliament and sit in the House of Commons. Some of them are ideologues and feel like they're the MP for Palestine and not the MP for Bethnal Green. But what we need to see, what we will find out, is how many of the Muslim community think that British law trumps
Because they do want to erect parallel Sharia courts here.
They do, and we have the English Church, the Church of England, is allowing calls to prayer in English churches, which I think is a strange thing to do, because I'm not sure that you'd get a nativity play in a mosque in Riyadh. I could be wrong, but that's why I think it's really important to be a somewhere person, and because you've got your own culture. People live separately because they have different cultures. That's why they live like that. We're different from the French, and the French are different from the Germans and the Italians, and but Islam is a religion, and it's sweeping across Europe, and it's caused a lot of problems in a lot of countries. And I'm not blaming the individual Muslim. I'm blaming the fact that people are having to switch cultures so quickly to come to cultures that are unrecognizable to them.
Do me a favor, reset to the neutral line, would you? The British government should allow the sale of the Telegraph to a foreign entity. Move. Wow. All right. You know what to do. You know the drill. I'm actually genuinely surprised that you guys are on opposite lines. You feel so strongly about this. You know the drill. Guess his reason.
I think that because it is a private entity, it should be allowed to. He's approaching this from a purely capitalist point of view. Sorry, it should be allowed to be sold to anybody.
Is that right?
Kind of.
Okay, close enough. Is it close enough?
It's no.
Okay. No. Guess his.
That the trust in. People need to have trust in established media sources, and those media sources should be onshore, should be owned onshore.
It's a good argument, but it's not my argument.
Is it better than yours?
No.
Okay, take one more guess. We only have a couple more minutes.
Okay, so a guess for him is that essentially I'm going to go for the cynic's argument. All mainstream media is bought and paid for. All of them are owned by billionaires. They're all corrupt. Therefore, what does it matter if Abu Dhabi owns it as opposed to Jeff Bezos?
Bing-a-ling.
Really?
Yeah.
I was thinking in my head, there's no possible way that's going to... Really?
Yeah.
Well, then show him. Legacy media is already totally... Okay, wow.
Yeah, and also, hang on, the same guys own Manchester City. It's improved the quality of the football. I think it's fine that... anybody owns it. I've not trusted anything I've read in any mainstream media publication for a very, very long time.
Wow, I'm really surprised. Okay, guess his reason.
Strongly disagree. Further erosion of our culture.
Is that correct?
No.
Okay, what's your reason? The sale of the Telegraph represents a major security threat.
So, for instance, what happens is that Abu Dhabi now have a mouthpiece in the mainstream media. Are journalists going to be allowed to be criticizing Abu Dhabi? Are journalists going to be allowed to be criticizing Islam in the Telegraph? Are journalists going to be allowed to say...
Muslim immigration.
Yeah, or Muslim immigration. It represents a very, very severe threat to freedom of speech. And actually, whilst I'm broad agreement with Laurence, I think out of all the mainstream media outlets, the Telegraph is better than most. And now it's going to be compromised as a result.
Interesting. I'll just tell you a quick thing. We're running close on time. So I was talking to somebody here who works for the BBC, and I was telling her about my friends, about you guys, people I've developed relationships with. And she said to me, your friends are the who's who of who hates the BBC.
So, I don't hate the BBC.
You don't hate the BBC?
No. The BBC reminds me of a girl that you used to know in high school who was beautiful, charismatic, had everything going for her. And then you meet her 30 years later in Tesco's and she's addicted to crack. She's got 6 kids and she's homeless. Yeah. It fills me with no joy whatsoever.
All right, cool. All right, put your boards down. Did you have fun today?
I did. I as I said to you before, I think it's the best way of discussing anything.
Yeah, I agree. We'd like to see this used in the schools. Did you have fun today?
Yeah, apart from the fact that that topic about Islamic immigration will have us both killed.
Yeah, so we'll have to figure out what to do about that. All right.
Nice knowing you, girl.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for playing, man. Thanks. Appreciate that. Appreciate
Cheers.
that. Thanks.